Hi everyone, welcome to From Ash to Air. I am a new channel and I intend on doing as many helpful videos as I can. I'm a tarot reader. I also read oracle decks, and I've been wanting to start a channel for a while. Today I want to focus on a deck that I don't think there have been very many unboxings showing this particular deck, called a Yogic Path. And I saw this on Amazon and I fell absolutely in love with it. Well, actually, I saw it on someone else's channel, but they were using it in a reading with several other decks combined. So what struck me was this beautiful image here, which is on the back of all the cards. And the colors, the design, it just was so beautiful. And when I researched the deck, it was no surprise to me that the illustrations are by Danielle Noel, who has done the Moonchild and the Starchild decks. And I am due to get those decks very soon. My order is in and I pre-ordered, and I'm awaiting them in the mail with anticipation. So this will make a nice oracle accompaniment to those two decks. But you know, it's a yogic path. So obviously the theme is about yoga, and for those of us who practice yoga or who have a connection to following a yogic path. And I know that may not be for everybody, and that's probably why I haven't seen too many unboxings about this particular deck. There are a lot of unboxing videos out there, people doing, you know, just the best unboxings. But since I'm new, I wanted to first put up an unboxing of something that maybe, you know, was a little rare. Like not a lot of the channels have done it. So I want to say first and foremost that this is an absolutely gorgeous presentation. The box is just phenomenal. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. The back of the box says, "Embark on a journey of awakening and self-discovery." And it says, "Steeped in the wisdom of the Vedas, this ancient yet visionary deck is a tool to access your yogic intention. Illuminated by ethereal artwork, the cards provide insight into the present and guidance for the future, connecting you to your inner wisdom and unlocking a deeper understanding of self." And the deck is by Sahara Rose, and as I mentioned before, the illustrations are by Danielle Noel. So it's just so pretty, and let me just show you just how amazing the presentation of this is. So this is a sleeve that slides off, and then you get the pure white box, which is also, I mean, handsome just by itself. And it does have a magnetic opening here. And when you open, it says, "May these cards bridge you to your highest self." It's just so lovely. It's a very nice, sturdy box, and it's got this beautiful ribbon so that you can lift out the guidebook. And the guidebook, let me just say, the guidebook is phenomenal. It's got all of this gilding in gold, but it has color illustrations of all the cards. And this deck does have upright and reversals. It is an oracle deck, but it's kind of so much more than that. Because the way it's separated into different sections: spirituality, Ayurveda, chakras, yoga, and deities. which, are different. The yoga section are different postures or terms that you would be familiar with from taking yoga classes. And the deities are all goddesses and gods, Hindu goddesses and gods. And then, of course, the chakra system, all of the Sanskrit words for all of the chakras. And then Ayurveda is the Indian study of health and wellness. So you've got the common terms that you would find in Ayurveda, and then spirituality are the main principles that you would follow if you were someone who was following a yogic path. So the cards are separated in that way. And it says here in the book, do you choose this deck, or did this deck choose you? According to the Vedas, both. You see, we are harmoniously conspiring with the universe to usher us towards our Dharma, our highest selves. These cards have arrived to guide you to your path toward enlightenment, or, in other words, your journey toward remembering who you are. Each card represents an aspect of yourself, as bright as the sun or as dark as the shadow, all of which make you you. So what she says about understanding the deck is that it's inspired by the Vedas, the ancient religious scriptures that were first recorded in India over 5,000 years ago. The word Veda means knowledge, and these Sanskrit texts were channeled by rishis, which were spiritual sages, to provide guidance on how we can live with the most optimal lives. The cards are organized into these 5 categories, which we just discussed. And she goes on to say that the cornerstone of Vedic spirituality is the idea that we are all souls who choose to incarnate in these human costumes at this time for a very specific reason, to fulfill our dharma, which is our life purpose. When we are living in alignment with purpose, we experience kriya, effortless flow. Doors open for us, we meet the right people at the right time, and we can almost take a passenger seat to our own lives and enjoy the ride. When we are not living in alignment with our dharma, or when we negatively harm someone else, we experience karma, bounded action from the universe. This can feel like a poke, a punch, or an accident. It is essentially a message to turn you back in the direction of your dharma. So she goes through and talks about each one of the sections. She goes on to talk about the yoga section, the Ayurveda section, the chakras, the deities, and the types of readings that you can do with this deck. She goes through, it's interesting, in her chapter about that, she does a whole thing about how best to phrase your questions, which I think is really interesting. She says, the beautiful thing about this deck is that it will reflect back what you put into it. The more mindful you become, the more mindful answers you will find. Being in the right environment, mindset, and mood is essential to receive the responses your soul is seeking. Your guides are working with you through these cards. Therefore, your role is to tap in to allow your consciousness to choose the right cards to deliver the exact message that is seeking to come through for you. And she says that it's very important how you phrase your question. So she explains what won't work. For instance, who questions such as who is my soulmate will not work with this deck unless your soulmate happens to be Krishna, Shiva, or another deity. Where questions won't work either, because the answers will always be your consciousness. When questions aren't going to fly because time doesn't exist in higher dimensions. Why questions can make sense, but be very careful with them because they often bring you back to victimhood, such as, why did this happen to me? Why didn't he choose me? A positive reframe would be, What have I been overlooking that will allow me to understand the situation better? This puts in an empowered position and gets to the core of the question. If you can ask a why question without getting into victimhood, go for it. But I encourage you to begin with what or how to keep you empowered. So the kind of questions she recommends are things like, what should I be more mindful of? What should I be focusing on right now? What is the best action to take? How should I approach this situation? How can I be a better partner? How can I manifest X, Y, and Z? So these are the samples. So she's making it very clear that this is really not a traditional tarot. This is an oracle deck, and it's a very specific oracle deck. So, and then she has a whole section about preparing the deck, how to cleanse it, how to connect with it, doing a reading. She kind of recommends just a one card reading. I like to use my oracle decks to aspect an entire reading. Sometimes I start with the oracle to give an overall feel to what that reading is about. Sometimes I use them as another insight into the tarot. So it kind of all depends, but I think that is all a personal choice that you can make as a reader. And so let's go into looking at the actual deck itself. So inside, we have another little pretty blue ribbon that we lift up, and we'll lift out the box. And so you have a box within a box. So even this box on its own is pretty gorgeous. I mean, I just really, I'm a Taurus, so I appreciate packaging. I know some people don't care about packaging, but I do. I think when you buy a deck and you get it delivered and you're anticipating it coming in the mail, I think one of the exciting things is opening. It's like getting a present, opening it up and seeing how pretty it is, or how cool it is, or how clever it is, how it's designed. And of course, I always appreciate these really nice high quality boxes because sometimes if you want to put them on a shelf, you just feel like they store and stack much nicer. They keep your cards nice. Obviously, if you keep your cards out on your desk, you might prefer putting them in a bag, some sort of velvet or silk bag or a wrap. But when you're not using them and you want to store them, it's really nice if they have a nice box. And yet another little blue ribbon so that we can lift the cards out easily. And just look at the back of these cards. I mean, I think they're stunning. I don't know. I mean, I've heard some people say that they're very feminine. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I could see how this deck may not appeal to men. Although, I really think that the art, when you look at the cards themselves, I think the artwork is not particularly feminine. I think that the artwork is, it's that kind of mixed media collage, which some people like and some people don't. But I personally think that mixed media collage can be just as beautiful as original artwork that's painted or sketched or any other kind of medium, because it does take an artist's eye to create a card with different images that they piece together that inspires a feeling or an identification or a connection to that card, and also just to be able to compose, to make the composition and make it appealing. So I think there's, I think it's a type of art form that is just as challenging for an artist and to accomplish And so I personally love it. Now the cardstock is quite thick. I will say that, and I've only worked with the deck a little bit, but it does sort of bend a little bit. I wouldn't go so far to say that it's warping, because I'm a firm believer that with this kind of cardstock, eventually after some shuffling and manhandling, it will eventually straighten out. I have not had made a decision about whether or not I want to edge this deck yet. I'm thinking about it. I wish I could edge it in this gold, but there's no way that I could get, even with, I don't know, I'd have to look, and if anyone has suggestions, please put it in the comments. I have a gold Sharpie, but it does not have that sort of lustrous, bright, gilded look that a deck that comes with gold edging does. So I almost wish, that's the one thing that I wish this deck had. I wish it had the gold, because I think it would have looked amazing if it had that edging, but that's just a minor complaint. I'm just going to go through some of these because I don't want to make this video too long, but to give you an idea of some of these cards, just to see the colors and just how dynamic and beautiful. I mean, look at that. Samadhi. How beautiful is that card? I love just the use of the color combinations, and it just makes me want to sit and meditate. Shiva. So here's one of the deity cards. Dharma. Pranayama. Rajas. Wow, look at that. So, I don't know, they're a peaceful looking deck, but they're dynamic at the same time, which is something that I find really interesting. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but when I look at them, I don't feel like they're too busy. I'm not distracted. I feel like I can zone into the image, like I get drawn in. But at the same time, I feel like the artwork is very dynamic, and obviously the color choices are very dynamic, and they're very true to Indian culture. You know, if you look at fabrics of saris and things like that, they have these very saturated, beautiful saturated colors. Radha. So beautiful. Asana. So we'll take a look in the book at a couple of the cards from each category, and I'll read you a little bit of the explanation so you get an idea of how these cards read. Oh, look at that. How beautiful that is with the lions. Just amazing. Just think this deck is so pretty. Krishna. Prana. Pitta. Thomas. It's a lot of lions and tigers in this artwork. Kapha, Santosha, Sadvishtana, Sitta, Pratahara, Muladhara, which is your root chakra. You can see with the red, this such a great expression of that chakra. And for someone like myself who practices yoga and meditation, and one of my favorite practices and one that I'm actually trained in as a teacher is Kundalini yoga and meditation. So this card, I feel, is such a great representation of that chakra when I feel connected to it, when I feel it's balanced and connected. The root chakra is at the base, the very, very, very base of the spine, almost at the rectum. It's where it starts, and that is the chakra that deals with your feelings of survival and safety and being connected and grounded to the earth. Beautiful card. And then we've got Pavarti. I mean, I think what's so amazing about these cards is that with all the color and all of what's going on, again, I don't feel they're too busy. I feel drawn into each image. That's what I think is the sign of a really good artist, because again, it's all about composition. And as we, as we all know, as tarot enthusiasts and oracle enthusiasts, one of the things we look for when we're reading for somebody or for ourselves is the symbology. If the symbology doesn't come out of the card, then it's very difficult to connect. And there are those decks that when you look at the pictures, if they don't get so familiar to you, like that's one thing I have to say. Okay, so how I could explain this would be it wasn't my first tarot deck, but one of my very first decks that I worked with was the Voyager Tarot. And it's a mixed media deck. And I worked with that deck for years before getting any other decks. And I think that the reason why that deck worked for me was because every single time I did a reading with it, it was like I was looking at the image for the first time, because there was enough in it for me to notice a detail that I didn't notice before, based on my intuitive sense or my spiritual connection to the download that I was getting about that person I was reading for. And so the card was almost ever evolving, which is what I personally like about mixed media cards and art. And I'm not saying that, RWS decks don't do that. They do. There are archetypes that are ever evolving, even though we know what they are. Even though there is a familiarity. What's lovely about collecting decks is that every deck you collect, it's exciting to see what the artist is then interpreting that archetypal image in their mind's eye, how they perceive it, how they understand it, their take on it. I'm going to go a little bit faster here. These chakra cards are really beautiful. beautiful. Kundalini. Let's leave this one out because we're going to look this one up in the book. And Karma. We'll leave that one out as well. I feel like there's two stuck together. No? We'll leave Kali out. We'll look her up. She's a different category. Vata is one we can look up as well. Tantra. And Ganesha. Okay, I have 4 pulled out, but I might have to pull out another one because I think there are 5 categories. So let's look at Kundalini first. Let's look that one up and see how this is read. So if you were to pick the card Kundalini, primordial, cosmic energy, serpent power. Kundalini is rising, the serpent-like energy that exists in the base of your spine. The Muladhara chakra has awoken, and you may have noticed that you feel more spiritually aware than ever before. You are more sensitive to energies and quickly manifesting your thoughts. Your psychic abilities are rising, and you feel the flow of energy that vibrates in every being. Your heart is full of a deep compassion and desire to serve others, and you have a keen awareness of your purpose. This is Kundalini rising. Stay grounded in this process. Connect to nature, exercise, journal, practice yoga. Through grounding, you'll be able to experience a beautiful and blissful Kundalini awakening that takes you exactly where you're meant to be. And then the reverse would be, so if the card were to show up in the reverse position, it would read, within your spine lies an energy more powerful than you've ever experienced. This energy will help everything make sense, releasing disillusion and putting you on the path toward your Dharma. However, the Kundalini awakening is not always easy. Sometimes shadow aspects of yourself show up, often mirrored in those around you. What is it that you need to look at deeper within yourself? How can you anchor further into your truth? Allow the tipping open of the Kundalini experience as it shatters all delusion, leaving space for the truth to unfold. Take each obstacle as a sacred lesson that can bring you closer to your highest self. Okay, so this is one of the cards in the yoga section. Then if we go to the card of Karma and we look that up, Karma is in the spirituality section. And I think we all are, I mean, even people who are not yogis or yoginis know what karma is. The sum of one's actions. Positive karma. You have done a lot of good on this planet, and the universe is rewarding you in her favors. Life feels a little easier, a little more colorful, a little more beautiful. You are walking on your path toward your Dharma, which creates the greatest karma one can experience. By saying yes to the purpose of your soul, you are saying yes to the greater power of the universe. Continue devoting your life to the service of spirit, and life will continue to unfold its wonders. And then obviously, the reverse is negative karma. And it's telling you to take a break from social media, television, all social obligations, and use that time to reflect. When did things become difficult? What decisions did you make at that time? What alternatives could have been better suited for your soul or your soul's purpose? It's like a kind of a, when the universe makes you feel like you went through a meat grinder. That's when you're experiencing some backlash, some negative karma. Okay, and then if we go into the Ayurvedic section of the deck and we look up Vata, I'm trying to remember, because I think I had sort of my Ayurvedic makeup done once by somebody who practices Ayurveda. It was really interesting because the principal philosophy behind it is that we all have different elements. We have all the elements in our body. And Vata is the airy dosha, creative, imaginative, and unpredictable. So in the upright position, creative one, it is time to let your ideas flourish. You've gotten a gust of the Vata wind energy and are riding its waves out to deeper waters. Ideas are bubbling within you and your body has become a vessel for its creative blessings. Allow yourself to dance to the rhythm of your thoughts and let them take you to higher places. The veil between the stars and the earth has been lifted, and the downloads you are receiving are straight from the universe. Be sure to anchor them down to this earth with action so your visions can manifest into reality. And then the reverse of this would be when there's too much wind, a tornado ensues. So the many ideas that are floating through your mind have not been anchored, leaving you feeling scattered, anxious, and ungrounded. Every idea is a seed that can only grow when planted. Reconnect with the earth, your physical body, and your root chakra. Consume grounding root vegetables which connect to the earth. Walk on the soil barefoot to rebalance your ionic charge. Meditate on your belly and imagine yourself drinking in the earth's energy. Focus on one step at a time and do not feel overwhelmed by the enormity of life. There is always more time if you allow it to be. So yes, so what I remember when I had my makeup, my physiological makeup studied by somebody who practices Ayurvedic medicine, what I remember is if your elements were off, so if everyone has the element of earth, the element of air, the element of fire, and the element of water in their body, they're supposed to be as balanced as possible. But as a general rule, we come into this life with a disbalance, and that's a natural thing. And so how we live our life with the types of foods we choose to eat, the types of activities we're drawn to, all will help to align and bring our body back into balance with the four elements. So if you have too much air, then the remedy, of course, is to ground yourself. So just like the card said, if this was in the reverse, it would say that your air energy is too prevalent, and now's the time to spend time outside in the earth, getting grounded, using your hands to plant, feeling your feet on the bare grass, that kind of a thing. And vice versa. If you had too much earth, then the recommendation would be air. If you have too much water, temper it with fire, vice versa. So it's very interesting. And then if we look at the deity section, so we've got Kali here, and a lot of people are familiar with her. She's the goddess of destruction, but not all in a bad way, obviously. Let's see. So if you drew this card, when you draw upon Kali when you are in time of radical rebirth. So this is almost like the death card in a traditional tarot deck. It's the archetype of death, because she's the goddess of destruction and dissolution, but also ecstasy. So you're in a time of radical rebirth. She's fierce, erratic, untamed. That part of you that you're afraid to give full control because you don't know where it will take you. She will destroy all disillusion and bring you face to face with your darkest shadows, not to cause anguish, but rather from a deep place of love. She demolishes the ego that creates the boundary between you and your highest self. She is ecstasy experienced in an orgasm, meditation, bold self-expression, or pushing a child out of the womb. Kali comes to you at a time of deep liberation, stepping into the true form of you. Trust the process and allow yourself to release all limitations so that you can become one with the bliss that you are. And then the reverse would be, look in the mirror. What is it that you were afraid to see? We all have parts of us that are less than perfect, but they can only be brought into the light through acknowledgement. Recognize those shadows, why they came to be, the purpose they once had, and how they are no longer needed. Write down the limiting beliefs that you are holding on to that are preventing you from reaching your higher truth and burn them into flames. Shake your body, scream, clear your house, let go of stale relationships, practice self-pleasure, free the parts of you that have been suppressed, and step into your wild nature to experience Kali's enlightenment. So that's if you were to pull it into the reverse. So, I don't know which, I know I did 4. There are 5 though. So what did I miss here? We got the yoga, we got deities, we missed one of the chakras. All right, well, let's see. Let's see if I can find one quickly. Well, let's go to the one that I picked up before, the Muladhara. Okay, the root chakra. So the chakra cards will be an indication, probably if you draw one, that you're a little unbalanced in your chakra system. So if you were to pull Muladhara, the root chakra, you've arrived in a place where you are very grounded in life. Your ideal home is in the process of manifestation, and you are setting roots where you are. This reflects the deep healing work that you have done to undo the ancestral ties that were previously holding you back. When you heal your personal life, you heal the lives of all those who come before you and all who came after you. Ancestral hardships such as poverty, immigration, war, slavery, and abuse have come to an end, and you have set the path for a new way of being for all of your ancestors to come. Thank you for doing this work and anchoring deeply within. It is only when you heal the root that the tree can grow. That's beautiful. I love that explanation, because when we teach Kundalini yoga, we talk so much about the chakras, because obviously Kundalini energy rises up the spine. And the purpose of practicing, one of the purposes of practicing Kundalini is to balance your chakras. So one of the things that we always talk about is that the Muladhara is so important, and it's actually the chakra that challenges most people, because anytime you're in that fight or flight mode, or you're struggling financially, that's usually the chakra that goes out of whack. Or if you're having problems at home with your family life or in a marriage, all of that gets very, very challenged. So the reverse would simply be that your mind, body, and soul are calling out for some grounding. So it's exactly what I said. If you were to draw it in the reverse, the advice would be you need to work on grounding yourself and balancing the chakra's energy. Okay. Anyway, so those are the different sections of the cards. But just to recap before I close out here, I can't express enough how beautiful I think this deck is. And I'm really pleased that I got it. It's different. I have no deck like it. It's an oracle deck, but obviously it's specifically themed. And I think it's beautiful. I think the packaging is beautiful. I think it was worth every penny. It was not that expensive. I think I paid, well, it's originally listed here as $35 in the States. I got it on Amazon and I think I paid $20 for it. So it was cheap for the quality of the cardstock, for the aesthetic look, for the packaging. I mean, honestly, I'm really happy I have it in my collection, and I think it's a beautiful deck. It's going to go so well when my Moonchild and my Star Child come in. I can't wait to use them together because they're going to look great. But I even think that this deck is a nice complement to Chris Ann's decks, like the Muse Tarot and even the Lightseers. You know, I think even the Lightseers Tarot would be a great combo to have these together. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening. I hope I didn't go on and bore anybody, but I highly recommend the Yogic Path, a Yogic Path Oracle card deck by Sahara Rose. I think you will be very pleased with it. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all again very soon.